All right, so for this question, we need to find evidence to support the idea of Nixon basically explaining why he's quitting. So we're trying to look for evidence that they supply us with, that they give us with, two pieces of evidence that show this idea of Nixon saying why he's quitting his job as president, why he is resigning. That's what resignation is quitting your job. And in this case, if you're the president, if you're resigning like Nixon did, you're quitting your job as president. So, a couple words here probably need defining for you. You need to have them defined before you know what they actually are asking you to do. So, if you ever see the word convey, that just means show. So, it says select two excerpts from passage one that convey Nixon's rationale. It's really just asking you, hey, pick me two pieces of evidence that show Nixon's rationale for his resignation. But then, if you don't know what the word rationale means, you need to have that defined as well, right? So, rationale is your reasoning, your justification for something. I know that's probably a word a lot of you guys have learned in class. So, if you're looking at this sentence again, reading it and kind of translating it in your own words, it's asking you select two excerpts or two pieces of evidence from passage one that show Nixon's reason for quitting as president. That would be the way that you would probably say this sentence to yourself. But sometimes we need to translate the question to understand what it's asking us in our own words. And if you need to do that to get a question right, take the time to mentally translate the words into language that you understand so you know what you're looking for. Now, we do know that we're looking for evidence of why Nixon quit. And so as we're looking through this evidence, we're going to look at it one by one and just examine it and see which two pieces of evidence are best. First, it says, in all the decisions I have made in my public life, I have always tried to do what was best for the nation. Throughout the long and difficult period of Watergate, I have felt it was my duty to persevere, to make every possible effort to complete the term of office to which you elected me. So here he's saying to the people, the American people, I've always felt like I needed to finish my job as president. After all, you guys elected me, so I think I've always thought it was my duty to continue as president until my 4 years was up. Does that sound like he's showing his reasoning for quitting? No, he's actually talking about the opposite. Because at this point in the speech, he's saying, here's why I have always not wanted to quit. Now, of course, later on, he's going to say, I changed my mind. This is why I'm quitting. But at this point in the speech, he's giving you his rationale for not quitting earlier on. So A is not a good option. If we look at B, it says, in the past few days, however, so here we see, okay, now he's changing his mind. In the past few days, that however signals a change, signals a contrast. It's one of those flag words that's flagging you to say, hey, whatever I was saying before, now I'm going to say the opposite. And now I'm going to introduce an idea that contrasts with what I said before or contradicts what I said before. He says, in the past few days, however, it has become evident to me that I no longer have a strong enough political base in the Congress to justify continuing that evidence. To justify continuing that effort. So he's saying here, I realize that my own Congress does not support me. I don't have a base of support that would justify continuing. So I don't have a justification or a reason to continue as president, he's saying in B. So does that sound like he's showing his reason for quitting? Yes, he's saying I'm quitting because I don't have enough supporters in Congress, not enough to support me being president anymore. So B is really strong. If we look at C, as long as there was such a base, I felt strongly that it was necessary. So here he comes again, he's flip-flopping back to, this is why I wouldn't quit. If there was a base, he's saying hypothetically, if I did have Congress's support, I always thought that I should continue to be president and just go through this constitutional process. Here he's referring to impeachment. So let the people, see if I'm guilty or innocent, and then I'll stick with this job as president to the very end. And if they find me guilty, they find me guilty. If they find me innocent, I'll continue to be president. So he's actually here. What is he doing? He's saying, again, a reason for why he would have continued as president. Is that a rationale for quitting? No, that's the opposite of a rationale for quitting. He's saying a circumstance in which he would have not quit, in which he would have continued as president and just gone through the constitutional process of impeachment. So C is not evidence for why he's quitting, which if we're looking back and we know that there's two excerpts We've already found one of them. B was his evidence for quitting, his rationale for resigning. We are expecting D to also be evidence for quitting, but we want to just make sure, double check. So it says, but with the disappearance of that base, so again, he's flipping back and forth, but now he's about to explain why I'm resigning, why I'm quitting. He says, with the disappearance of that base that he mentioned earlier, in meaning now that Congress does not support me, I don't have a base of supporters anymore. I now believe that the constitutional purpose has been served and there is no longer need for the process to be prolonged. So he's basically saying, now that I don't have any more support in Congress, I've already been accused of wrongdoing. I've already been impeached. I don't think that we need to go through this whole process anymore and drag it out any longer than it has to be. And he says, I'm just going to cut everything short and quit and resign. That way this process doesn't have to continue. And so B and D are evidence for rationale of Nixon for resigning. In other words, they're evidence that Nixon gives for why he's quitting his job as president.